India, the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. For over 2 centuries, Britain ruled over India, exploiting its people, resources, and markets. But how much did Britain really take away from India? And what was the impact of this massive plunder on India's development and destiny? In this video, we will explore the shocking truth of how Britain stole $45 trillion from India, using a combination of brute force, cunning policies, and deceptive accounting. We will also examine how this colossal theft shaped the modern world and how it continues to haunt India and Britain today. The story begins in 1765, when the East India Company, a private corporation backed by the British government, gained control over Bengal, the richest province of India. The company imposed a land tax of 50% on the peasants and collected it in silver coins. The company then used this silver to buy Indian goods, such as cotton, silk, spices, and tea, and sell them in Britain and other markets. The company did not pay the Indian producers in silver, but in special paper currency called council bills, which could only be used to pay taxes to the company. This way, the company ensured that the silver stayed in its hands while the paper currency circulated in India. This was the beginning of the drain of wealth from India to Britain. The drain was not just a transfer of money, but also of goods, skills, and knowledge. The company destroyed India's indigenous industries such as textiles and shipbuilding by imposing tariffs, bans, and taxes. The company also prevented the development of new industries such as railways and steel by blocking the inflow of technology and capital. The company also exploited India's natural resources such as coal, iron, and timber and exported them to Britain. The company also suppressed India's scientific and cultural achievements and imposed its own education, religion, and legal system. The drain of wealth was not only economic but also human. The company's policies caused famines, epidemics, and wars, which killed millions of Indians. The worst was the Great Bengal Famine of 1770, which killed 10 million people, 1/3 of the population. The company did not provide any relief and instead continued to collect taxes and export grains. The company also waged wars against the Indian rulers and people who resisted its tyranny. The most famous was the Indian Rebellion of 1857, which was brutally crushed by the company. The company also divided India along religious, caste, and ethnic lines and sowed the seeds of communal hatred and violence. The drain of wealth continued even after the British Crown took over the administration of India from the company in 1858, following the rebellion. The British government followed the same policies of taxation, trade, and repression, but on a larger scale. The government also added new sources of drain such as the home charges, which were the costs of running the Indian administration, but paid in London, the tribute, which was the excess of India's revenues over its expenditures, but remitted to London, and the sterling debt, which was the loans taken by India from Britain, but never repaid. The British government also forced India to participate in its imperialist wars, such as the 2 World Wars, and bear the costs and casualties. India had to supply men, money, and materials to Britain and fight in foreign lands without any say or benefit. India also had to accept the British domination over its foreign trade and policy and lose its traditional markets and allies. The drain of wealth reached its peak at the end of the Second World War, when Britain was on the verge of bankruptcy and India was on the brink of independence. The British government extracted the last ounce of wealth from India and left it with a shattered economy, a divided society, and a hostile neighborhood. How much wealth did Britain drain from India during its colonial rule? According to a recent study by economist Utsa Patnaik, Britain took away $45 trillion from India between 1765 and 1938. This amount is equivalent to 17 times India's current GDP and 1.8 times the current world GDP. This amount is also conservative, as it does not include the drain after 1938 or the value of the goods, skills, and knowledge taken from India. What was the impact of this drain on India and Britain? The drain impoverished India and enriched Britain. India's share of the world economy fell from 27% in 1700 to 3% in 1947, while Britain's share rose from 2% to 10% in the same period. India's life expectancy fell from 35 years in 1700 to 27 years in 1921, while Britain's rose from 36 years to 60 years in the same period. India became a backward, agrarian and dependent economy, while Britain became a modern, industrial and dominant economy. The drain also enabled Britain to finance its industrial revolution, its wars against other European powers, and its colonization of other regions, such as Africa and Asia. The drain also facilitated the rise of capitalism, the spread of English language and culture, and the emergence of the United States as a global power. The drain of wealth from India to Britain is one of the greatest crimes in history and one of the least acknowledged. It is a crime that has shaped the world we live in today, and a crime that has left a legacy of injustice, inequality, and resentment. It is a crime that needs to be exposed, understood, and redressed. This is the story of how Britain stole $45 trillion from India and how it changed the world forever.